Well, welcome to the Security Weekly News wrap-up show for the week of 14 August 2022. We got Janet Jackson, legit British hacking, CS.Go, PyPi, Swiss voting, Vegas, Sysmon, and all the show wrap-ups on the Security Weekly News.
This is Security Weekly, for security professionals, by security professionals.
We interrupt our program to bring you this important message.
It's the show that keeps you up to date on the latest security news twice a week. Your trusted source for accurate security information and expert analysis. It's time for Security Weekly News.
Right now, everybody is talking about cryptocurrency, and the cyber criminals are hiding in the conversation. Cyber criminals use social engineering loaded with urgency and fear to successfully prey on your company, your employees, and your customers. Spear phishing is just one of the 13 types of email threats. Barracuda has identified 13 types and shows you how you can protect your company, your customers, and your reputation. Find out about the 13 email threat types and Barracuda email protection by going and getting your free ebook at securityweekly.com/Barracuda. That's securityweekly.com/Barracuda. All right, I'm Doug White, and this is the Security Weekly News Wrap-Up Show, episode 233. Wow. We have a lot of episodes now. On Application Security Weekly this week, number 208, Joe, John, and Mike had Tanya Yanka, the Director of Developer Relations at Bright Security, on the show. Tanya was on talking about adding security tools to a CI/CD and the difference between perfect AppSec and good AppSec, which I kind of like that, because you often see people trying to pursue some sort of perfect policy when they really just, it would be better if they just had a good policy instead of, getting tied up. And Tanya also has an upcoming book. In the second segment, the AppSec News. On Business Security Weekly number 273, Adrian, Jason, and Lee had on Jess Byrne, a senior analyst at Forrester Research. Jess was on to talk about what happens when key members of your team leave. And how you really need a formal succession planning process. I have been called about that kind of thing a lot of times, where companies were like, all of our network people are leaving. We're stuck with, Chet, and he doesn't really know what he's doing. Or the only person left is the intern, and, that kind of stuff. The report being discussed was providing steps for starting a succession planning program. So that's not a bad idea. And real world examples of companies who are already doing this well. So definitely worth checking out. I think every company goes through, periods of turnover from time to time, and it's a good idea to know what to do when that starts happening. In the second segment, Jill Toro, the Senior VP of Content Strategy at Cyber Risk Alliance, hosted Craig Newmark, the founder at Craigslist, and Craig Newmark Philanthropies, to talk about his career. Craigslist was one of those, early unicorn things that just sort of like, it was, some guy putting ads in the paper, and all of a sudden it was like this giant thing. But he was on talking about how the development of Craigslist forced his evolution in InfoSec, because again, like I said, he went from being somebody who's, got a few ads in the paper to being a, massive organization with a lot of profile. Also in the segment, Jill spoke with Dave DeVault, the founder of Night Dragon, and Matt Carroll, the CEO at Night Dragon, about how to transition from a successful startup to a successful enterprise. So, again, a pretty interesting segment there. On Enterprise Security Weekly 285, Adrian Cady and Tyler Shields had on Scott Giordano, the VP for Corporate Privacy and General Counsel at Sperian, LLC. Scott was on to talk about the upcoming 2023 rights-based data privacy laws. Now, those laws were already passed, but they did not go into effect until 2023. So in the United States, this will go into effect starting next year and be enforceable. And that's a state level thing. So he also talked about the California Privacy Rights Act and some other things like that. So if you're interested in that privacy stuff, that was a good segment to check out. In the second segment, Jennifer Sosa, the Director of Consulting and Information Governance at TransPerfect Legal Solutions, joined the show. Jennifer was on to talk about the SEC's new rules. So this is more new rules that these came into play in March 2022, and some information about how these new SEC rules may affect businesses and other legislation that is ongoing. In the third segment, Zain Malik, the senior product marketing manager at Ping Identity, was on. And Zain was on the show to talk about passwordless technology, something everybody's always interested in, but nobody, really getting to at this point. Also talked about customer identity and access management and how you might start to select a solution. On Security Weekly News, number 230, Jason talked about a story we talked about on Paul's Security Weekly as well, about these Russian hackers who did not know the difference in Birmingham, England, and London, England, I guess. We talked some about Paul's Security Weekly about what that might mean. But basically, they stole data from Staffordshire, and they tried to use it to ransom London, the Thames Water District. Yeah, and of course, the people were like, this is not our data. So I don't really know what they were trying to do. There was an interesting story for the week. Really weird. On Paul's Security Weekly number 752, Larry did a great job filling in for Paul, who was away. I won't say I did a great job, but I probably did. And, come on. But in the first segment, Greg Conti was on. Greg is awesome and is a principal at Copidon Security and was on talking about, all sorts of stuff. Greg's a really interesting guy and has all this experience with the military, with the NSA, the DOD, all these, three-letter organizations, and is really fun person to talk to about just about anything. So we got to ask all our questions about military, the evolution of cyber security stuff with the military, online conflicts, and so on and so on. And it was a lot of fun, but Larry did forget to ask him the 5 questions, so Greg will have to come back in the future and do that part. In the second segment, cybersecurity news with Chris Blasek, who is the global director, ICS security at Unisys, who's awesome. If you know Chris, and he's a really awesome and amazing person to get a chance to talk to. I'm always happy when I get to talk to people like that, because I'm like, wow, that was really fun. I got to talk to Chris. All right, the threat of the week is going to be losing your hard-earned money in new and exciting ways. I had put this story on Paul's Security Weekly on Wednesday night, and I did so because I didn't even know what it meant at first. I saw the headline, and I was like, what? It said the CS.money platform for trading CS.Go skins must what? It didn't mean anything to me. I mean, I know what a skin is, and I've done game development, and I know how that works, and I figured it was something to do with, with games, but I didn't even know what CS was at the time, but then I did a little reading, and I found it was Counter-Strike, which I did know what Counter-Strike was. And, that's a very well-established online gaming world. It's been around a while with a lot of players. So the story was about someone stealing 20,000 items. And understand, these are not real. These are items. And if you're not a gamer and you don't know about, in-game stuff, but these are, things you can buy in the game. And they stole 20,000 of them, which were valued at around $6 million US. Really. Like game items. So the Sword O'Plenty, is worth something in a game. And I'm not disparaging it. Don't get me wrong. I mean, I understand games. I understand how games work, and I understand how companies monetize games. And game worlds evolve around stuff like that. And so people that are playing those games want the stuff. CS.money is a trading site for these type of things. So if you have in-game items, you can sell them to other people. I'm sure there's, and I've never played this game, but I'm sure there's rare items and there's all kinds of weapons and whatever. And these things that were being stolen were just skins, right? So they're just ways to make your stuff unique. They don't actually do anything per se, but people want to have unique things in these games. And I mean, I've seen this before, but it did start making me think, everybody's probably played some kind of game that had in-game purchases or whatever, or you got tired of grinding in some game and said, hey, I can hire this guy who will grind this for me for 50 hours for, $120, and I'll just pay somebody to, buff my character up. I mean, I had a Second Life account when it first came out. I was kind of interested in it. I lost interest in it pretty fast, but it seemed interesting, and it had its own currency, right? So you could actually, you could transfer money out of your bank account into this world. And in that world, you could buy things. I had a friend who was designing tattoos and selling them in the game, or it's not a game really, but in Second Life. And, most games these days, so almost everyone you see has some sort of online tokens or points or something that you can use to get unique items or custom items or even just stock items that you want to use in a game, whether they're just the way something looks or a different color for your race car or whatever. They've got all those kind of things for sale. Well, on the heels of that, then, to me, there's an awful lot of opportunities in a whole marketplace world that sort of sprung up about trading these things in the games legitimately. They have a lot of out-of-game trading that may be illegitimate where and I've seen bans on that kind of stuff, and I've seen, service agreements that say you can't, sell stuff. I don't know how they enforce some of those things, because if I go in a game and I agree to meet you at the Mine of the Damned, on Tuesday night at 8 p.m. Greenwich Mean Time, and we will exchange this sword that I paid you for on Venmo. And I mean, I've seen that kind of stuff going on. I've seen games banning that kind of stuff and so forth. But then I read, I read stories all the time about people hiring gold diggers, where you pay them by the hour to buff up your characters and stuff like that. So, I mean, all this stuff starts to sound a lot more like real life, right? Because if something has value in a game and you can exchange that something for hard, cold cash on the outside, then that something may actually be extremely valuable in real life, not just in a game. So if somebody finds the stone of forgiveness or something in an underground cavern, and they have the option to transfer that to someone else, it may be either legitimately traded in the game, it may be traded on a third-party site the game controls, or it may actually be traded legally or illegally on some other discussion forum somewhere else. So when that starts happening, you get exchange rates, you get money laundering, and of course you get straight-up criminals who want to relieve you of your valuables. Now, in the real world, they come corner you in an alley with a knife, and they say, "Hey, I'm going to take that nice, Richard Mille watch that you have on." No, I don't have a Richard Mille watch, unless somebody wants to send me one. But if you do, but preferably not one where it's misspelled. But anyway, so they have to find ways that they can actually extort this stuff or steal this stuff in another manner. So that became my thread of the week, because I was thinking, you're taking your money and you're putting it into a game, like a virtual coat check, where they probably don't have much in the way of security and maybe don't even focus on that. And I remember a long time ago, I was in New York, and I was watching all these people go in this club who brought guitars to get the guitars signed by Steve Vai, who's this really big-time guitar player. And he has his own signature guitars, right? So they bought these, and they bring them in to get them signed. And when the show was going to start, after they had done all this signing, the club would not allow the people to have their guitars in the auditorium. So what are they supposed to do? The show's going to start in 30 minutes. Are they going to go get on the subway and go back home and drop their guitar off? Or, they took it to coat check. I was like, oh my God. There's this giant sign on the coat check that says, "We're not responsible for valuables left at the coat check." And, these were gym guitars that probably averaged $3,000 to $5,000 worth of value. So, I don't know that any guitars were stolen, but back to the games and online currency stores. I really think there's some issues here. I mean, and they're sort of crossing some boundaries between the virtual world and the real world. So if in the real world, I went and I bought a $5,000 Steve Vai signed guitar, not that I would ever do. Sorry, Steve. It's like, I just wanted to play. I don't care whose name is on it. I'll still suck. But if I went and bought that, I would want that insured, right? Like the other day, I was looking at this guitar. I'm not going to buy it unless somebody wants to buy it for me. It was like a 1957 Gibson SG. It was like $11,000. Very nice, but $11,000. If I bought that, I would want it insured, right? I would want to make sure that I had a way, if it got lost or damaged or destroyed, I could get my money back that I had invested in that. And games don't have that. So if you spend amazing amounts of time or money or whatever, and you develop this character, this sword, this whatever, I'm worried about that. That's a serious, that could be a serious value that you're going to lose when somebody hacks that system. And and I don't want to argue about fiat currency. I know everybody starts arguing about that with me about like, well, that has no real value either. It's not like a US dollar's backed by anything. It's just, your perceived worth of it. I'm like, well, yeah. And I don't want to get into the whole debate about that versus crypto and so on, because I agree they're really about the same thing. But I guess what I wanted to kind of warn you about, make you think about a little bit, is the next time you're transferring funds, time, energy, or trading or whatever into games, start thinking about what that stuff is worth. Because how much are you spending? I mean, even if it's just you say, oh, every day I spend $2 on this game. And over 2 years, you end up with, thousands of dollars worth of components that you slowly invested in this game. I mean, I don't think anybody's insuring stuff like that at this point, but I mean, think about it. I mean, there's probably people that have game components, characters, and so forth that they have invested thousands of dollars in. And what if that game suddenly shuts down or it gets hacked and somebody steals all your stuff? I mean, it's literally like leaving all your cash with some guy named Bert in a biker bar and just say, hey, man, keep an eye on this for me, okay? You're trustworthy, right? I can tell by looking in your eye. So the gaming servers that you're using may not be in some local jurisdiction to you. They could be in another country. They could be in a hostile foreign country. Maybe they're in China. And because of that, the company may have little or no controls. They may not even care. They may be the coat check at the club in New York City that says, we're not responsible for your valuables here, folks. And so you really wouldn't have a lot of recourse if your sword of Stan or your cloak of scabies prevention +2 gets stolen and you've spent a lot of cash, time, and effort to get those things. And I'm not making fun of gamers. Please don't get me wrong. I think gaming is a lot of fun, and I know that lots of people enjoy it. And I'm literally saying I think this is a serious issue, and I think more and more games are going to have a lot more longevity going forward. At some point you're going to be talking about the 50th anniversary of World of Warcraft. Imagine if you had been involved in that game for 30 years, and the amount of stuff, value of that stuff, and so on and so on and so on. And a lot of games have this now, and it's becoming a bigger deal. So you may have a significant investment of cash into a given game over time. So, before you get carried away, especially if you're just starting with a game and you don't know a lot about it, and I would really recommend you do some research about where and how your money's going to be managed in terms of exchange rates. Like, can you get your money back? Can you sell things that you've bought in the game? So you buy a $5,000 item in a game. Can you sell that item legitimately, or are you going to have to break the law? Can you get your money if you sell it, and so forth and so on? And before you get involved, and and be sure you understand the risks of this, because there is no insurance. So if your house burns down in Second Life and you lose all your stuff because some hacker targeted you, well, it's just gone. So, and we had a discussion about that at the university when we first were fiddling around with Second Life about, what happens if somebody damages this and so on. So always read the fine print. And now the news. I thought this first story was the story I had done last week, but no, it wasn't. 12 malicious PyPi packages were found to contain malware that modifies the Discord client to become an information stealer. And this information stealer focuses on taking data from web browsers and Roblox, which I think is another game. All 12 packages were pushed up to PyPi on the 1st of August by a user named ScaryCoder, and they were found by Sneak Research. And I never know if it's Sneak or Snake, and one of these days I'll get to talk to somebody from there and they'll tell me, but it's SNYK. Very well-known company. I've never heard it said, but I'll call it Sneak. So Sneak Research, the previous story I had up was about typo squatting packages in PyPi that look like other packages that people are wanting to use, and they just quickly search and they go, oh, yeah, there's the one I want, and they've just changed the name around a little bit. These 12 packages were standalone. They did not pose as something else. They advertised features to try to get you to download them. So, you're searching for X, and they tell you, in fact, one of the things that people were searching for was Roblox tools. So people that wanted to develop stuff for Roblox were looking for, tools and things to help thread management, so a basic programming concept, and some basic hacking tools, and of course, if one of the first lessons everybody learns as a junior hacker wannabe is when you download the package that says hacking tools and unzip it and it takes over your whole network. You've just learned something about hacking, right? But none of these packages actually even pretend to do what they say they do. So once you get them, all of the packages, which are still available on PyPi, according to this article. I did not go in there and look for them, but they said they were still on there as of today. So they're sitting out there. They're data stealers that if you install them, they're going to go ahead and set up, compile, and get everything rolling to steal data from your web browser and report it outside when your program runs. So be warned. Kaspersky also republished a report on Wednesday, which provided 2 other PyPi packages that also contained different info stealers. These and also used the Discord client modification to do this. So seriously, you may want to look, and I've advised people about this forever and ever, and we all do it. We all download. You need something to draw a graph on the screen, and you go, oh, look at this graph drawer, and you download it, and you embed it, and you start trying to use and by then you've probably already done damage. So try to take a look at these libraries before you install them and use them, because I'm sure there's a lot of other ones. If there's this many, there's others. And so there's probably other things on PyPi, and if there aren't, there will be soon, because people are going to read these articles and go, ooh, here's a way to do this. So there's a lot of detail in the article about how all these things worked, and they show you the code and everything if you're interested in such things. Along similar lines, 35 malware Android apps were found that display unwanted advertisements on the Google Play Store that had over 2 million total installs. Yeah. Bitdefender identified all these using what they called real-time behavior-based analysis method, which I was like, wait, let me read that again. Real-time behavior-based analysis method. And I don't know if that's a technique or it just means they just installed stuff and watched what happened. I mean, that sounds like one of those academic descriptions of something very basic, where it's just like, we use the Mark IV eyeball to, yeah. I bet, again, maybe it's something I should have looked up, but who knows. Anyway, the apps lure you into installing them with specialized functionality. Again, so this is this, install me, I'll do this for you. I'm like, I can do this, I can do that. But as soon as you're installed, they immediately change their names and their icons so that they're better hidden on your system. So they find a place to tuck them away. They had a lot of obfuscation approaches that were documented in this article. After that, they basically regularly serve up annoying ads by abusing WebView, which then results in fraudulent impressions for these ads and ad revenue that goes to the people who wrote the code. The method used means they could also drop things because it is a framework. So that means that once this is installed in your system and they're dropping ads to you, but they could also drop other things, so there's bad. There is a list of a whole bunch of these in this article along with other stuff. So if you're concerned about that using Android, you have Android users you support, you might want to check it out. Sysmon 14 has been released by Microsoft and has a new option called File Block Executable, which will allow you to block the creation of executables like EXEs, DLLs, and sys files on the local system. If you use this tool, it will allow you to literally set up a block against any creation of an executable based on criteria like the file path, so where it's trying to be built, the hashes, you can put a list of hashes in, or if it has a creation origin, so some other executable or whatever is trying to do this, you can actually block all that on the fly. One of the features allows a blockage of any executable creations from Word or Excel, which would prevent a lot of the common tactics that we see where people are trying to push DLLs into local systems using stuff attached to Word files. Sysmon is a free Microsoft Sys internals tool that can be used to monitor events. Now, despite all this, apparently Adam Chester already found a way to bypass this restriction, excuse me, and provided a proof of concept with a workaround. Adam did go on to say the tool did work, and it does block automated type attacks, but would not prevent an attacker who is directly trying to attack you getting around it. There's a lot of details about all that in the article as well. Besides Black Hat and Defcon Raw last week and last weekend as well. So if you did get to go, and I hope you did, some of us did not, and I know I'm bitter and petty about it. But it sounded fun. I wish I had been there. And it seems to be slowly returning to normal, according to my secret inside sources who were there spying on all of you rapscallions and layabouts. Yeah. There was a flash flood, apparently, during the week, so that's that kind of adds a little element of excitement to a tech conference. But compared to last year, apparently there were a lot more people there, so maybe by next year we'll all be there again, and it'll be back to the way it was, back in like 2018 or something. Patrick Wardle hacked Zoom on a Mac to get root. Pentest partners demoed a flaw in electronic flight bag tablets used by Boeing pilots, which could result in scary miscalculations. Starlink was shown to have a hack with a $25 microchip mod by Leonard Voters. James Kettle debuted a new class of HTTP request smuggling attacks that would allow compromise of Amazon and Akamai to break TLS and exploit Apache servers, and many, 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 many more. Way too many to list on this show, or we'd be here all day. But they will have, of course, all those talks and things available pretty soon if they're not already. So hopefully next year it will resemble a more normal event season for the Vegas crowd, and hopefully we'll all be there and get to see each other again. And I don't like to get into politics in the show, and I won't do it here, but if you're interested in election and voting machines, for whatever reason, the Swiss Post is offering a bug bounty for attacks of its online voting infrastructure for a period of 4 weeks with a maximum payout for the bugs of 30,000 Swiss francs, which is about the same in U.S. dollars, maybe a little more dollars. The latest round will run until the 2nd of September. According to the article, the same infrastructure that's going live for them will be available for testing. The Swiss Post previously tried to create this system back in 2019, and they had hacking tests, and maybe they were sort of a pre-bug bounty kind of thing, but they dropped the whole project because there was so much concern about online voting in general. They are now stating they would like to get this online and available for use by 2023. So if you're interested in that kind of thing, jump on board and get in on it. In the UK, the Computer Misuse Act was passed in 1990s and hasn't really been updated since then. This new article says that the people trying to reform this law have identified activities that should be legally defensible based on a consensus view of experts. Some of the activities that are currently considered illegal under this, and they listed that they should be, were responsible vulnerability research and disclosure, proportionate threat intelligence, best practice internet scanning, and things like that, along with enumeration, the use of open directory listings, and honeypots. All of that stuff can be considered illegal under that. It's, as we all know, a lot of these types of red teaming and even some blue teaming things may well be considered under the law wherever you are. For instance, like possession of burglary tools, something we've talked about on Paul's Security Weekly before. Some states in the United States have laws that say possession of burglary tools illegal, which means somebody could literally say that wrecking bar you've got in the trunk of your car is a burglary tool. Or, what about those lock picks you have in your pocket? Those might be illegal in your locale. So, and that doesn't mean you're a criminal. It just means you like to pick locks, like a lot of hackers, but that considered a burglary tool. So things like internet scanning could be actually illegal under a lot of these different acts. Should it be illegal to scan public sites, and how far should that go? They did go on and define in this article things they should not be allowed, like hackbacks, malware deployment, and they did say something about active defense techniques being a kind of gray area. Anyway, it's interesting to follow, and you'll see those kind of laws, I think, maybe evolving over time. And finally, Janet Jackson, who made a lot of waves in the 80s. We could get into, there's several famous things, and that's Miss Jackson, if you're nasty, has a music video from 1989. This story was all over the place this week, and I was like, what? It is apparently the music video has been declared a security vulnerability. I thought it was going to say been declared, offensive or something, but it's been declared as a security vulnerability. The Rhythm Nation, which is a song apparently by Janet Jackson, has a video like everything started having in the 1980s when MTV came online and everything. So the Rhythm Nation video apparently froze some models of hard drives on older laptops. What? Now, as I was reading it, I was stopping going, what? I was like, how is it causing them? How could that even be? Anyway, according to a blog from Raymond Chen of Microsoft, playing the video caused crashes on certain laptops, and it just keeps getting weirder. So apparently, they were testing this out, and they found that playing the video not only crashed the laptop on which it was playing, but it crashed some other laptops that were sitting on the table as well. So is it like possessed? Is this like some kind of magical trick? I was like, what? I was like, okay, this has got to be ridiculous. Okay, so here's what the article says. The song has a frequency in it that is a natural resonance with 5,400 RPM spinner drives used in some laptops. What? And my initial thought was, okay, this is some kind of urban legend, tinfoil hat, brown sound type of stuff, right? I mean, if you've never heard about the brown sound, Google that, and maybe don't. It could be bad. But there's a whole South Park episode about it. But MITRE declared Rhythm Nation a vulnerability and assigned CVE 2022-38392 to the video, so you can go read about it. Now, remember, this is all really old equipment, and I mean really old, like Windows XP level stuff. So you can probably listen to Janet Jackson on your modern machines without any problem. But despite all my skepticism, apparently in 2017, Alfredo Ortega played a 130 hertz tone and caused a hard drive to fail. And there were other papers from reputable sources that illustrated how acoustic attacks on hard drives, CCTV, and other devices can cause them to fail. So check that out if you're interested. And that's a wrap for the week of 14 August 2022. I'm Doug White. We'll see you next week on the Security Weekly News.